Hello fellow CNC nuts and welcome. The other day I got asked an interesting question on one of my videos. Where did I find replacement bearings for my 35-year-old router? Now the video I made was 5 years ago, which now makes my router 40 years old. But if I wanted to get replacement bearings for it, I could do that no problem whatsoever. So let's start with the basics. You've pulled your router apart. You've got your bearings out. Are they actually faulty? Well, let's have a look. The easiest way to tell if a bearing is faulty is simply to hold it in your hand and rotate it. Feel how it rotates and make sure it rotates smoothly. In this case, this feels like it's full of grit. The second thing is, listen to it. Hopefully you can hear that rotating, and it doesn't sound that great. Not only that, this bearing has rubber seals on it. It should not rotate freely as it is, so the rubber seals have gone on it. That said, that's probably why there's grit in there and it's failed. This bearing here is actually out of my router. This does not rotate freely, but when I turn it, it doesn't feel great either. And you can probably hear it there as it rotates. That's not a great sign by any standards. This is the bottom bearing out of my router. It doesn't rotate, it turns smoothly, and it's silent. This is okay. Unfortunately, the rubber seals on here have started to bulge, and I'm a bit worried about how good they are. They could be failing. I've got the router apart. I might as well replace it. It's less than $20, and it means I don't need to pull the damn thing apart again later because this one's failed. Having decided now that my bearing does need replacing, where do I look for that replacement? Now, if my router's only a couple of years old, I could perhaps go back to the original equipment manufacturer and ask them for replacement bearings. And that's probably not a good idea. First off, if it's only a couple of years old, they've probably failed prematurely, and you're only going to get another couple more years out of a replacement set of the same type. Secondly, they're probably going to cost you an arm and a leg compared to sourcing them from another location. If your router's as old as mine is, asking for replacement bearings is just a waste of time. They're not going to hold these things in stock on the off chance that somebody 35 or 40 years down the track is going to ask for a replacement set of bearings. Fortunately, you can easily find replacement bearings, and you can do it a lot cheaper than you can by going back to your original supplier. Bearings are relatively easy to identify. On the shields, they have written their part number. This is an SCO 228C3, and this one actually also has it written on its outside edge here. I can tell it was made by NTN and made in Canada. This one is an imperial bearing, while this one is a 6200 NSL, and it's made in Japan by Nanchi, and this is a metric bearing. I don't know why one end of the spindle or the armature is imperial and the other end is metric, but there you have it. So if you're not sure about your bearing and you can't find the part number on it, then the next best thing to do is get out your calipers. I'm going to first of all just measure the inside of this bearing, and it comes to 15.89. Now that's an oddball measurement. It sounds more like it's about 5/8, so 0.0625, that's 5/8. So when I change this to inches, so I now know it's an imperial bearing. The outside dimension is 1.375, so that's 1 3/8, and it measures 4.36, which I think makes it about 7/16. So I'm now going to put this information onto the VBX website and it will show me what the equivalent bearing is for this here. So looking down the page here, we can see that the equivalent bearing is a 1623-2RS C3 bearing. The 2RS indicates that there are two rubber seals, one on each side of the bearing. If it was a ZZ bearing, a 1623ZZ, then it would have two metal shields on them. The metal shields unfortunately will allow dust to get in there, so we want the two rubber seals. The C3 indicates the clearance of the bearings. The C3 has a greater than normal clearance. This allows when the bearing is running at high speed and gets up higher temperature that there's enough room for expansion so that the bearing doesn't end up seizing on us. Because VXB bearings don't have the bearing that I require, what I've done is I've had a quick search on eBay and I found the bearing I require for less than $7 US. There's also postage on top of that, which works out a bit too much for me to get the bearing from eBay, but if I was living in the US, because it's a US seller, I'd be able to get it at a reasonable price. Fortunately, I can get that bearing locally at a reasonable price. And by chance, when I actually look at this packet now, I bought 5 years ago, I see it is actually a 1623-2RS C3 bearing. Looking at the other bearing, if we take some measurements on it, we will find that it has an inner diameter of 10 millimeters, outer diameter of 30 millimeters, and is 9 millimeters wide. So when we input that into the VXB bearing website there, we find that it is a 6200 series bearing. I want the C3 version of it, and I want the two rubber seals to keep rubbish out of it. And as you can see, they actually have those ones there at pretty reasonable prices too. The last option I could look at is ceramic bearings. Now I don't know much about it, and I tried doing a bit of research on it, but I couldn't really get any clear answers. My understanding is, and I could be wrong on this, is that ceramic bearings are harder, they're lighter than the steel versions, they run much smoother, they don't expand when they get hot, they can run at high speed and are quieter. I do believe that spindles, high-speed spindles, actually use ceramic bearings, but that's my belief. I could be entirely wrong on that. But at $70 per bearing, I'm not going to pay that to find out. Maybe somebody will be able to correct me on that information, but as I understand it, ceramic bearings are the better ones for high-speed spindles. However, this is a router. The steel bearings work fine, and I don't have a problem with it. Mine have now been running 5 years, fairly heavy use for a home use anyway. And the bearings are still good in it. Well, I hope you found that useful, guys, and if you ever find yourself in a position where you need to replace the bearings in your router, you won't find it as quite as daunting as you might think. If you like this video, please remember to like it. If you haven't already done so, why not subscribe to me on YouTube and follow me on Google+. In the meantime, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you later. Cheers.